I'm not enjoying it as much as I thought I was going to. I mean, how could I not love that about this? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's happening. I don't actually feel like I'm enjoying this book, but I am interested. I just don't think I can continue. Hello everybody, welcome to this week's reading vlog. I am just getting set up for my first roll of this week. It is my pick, so I can choose what I want. Depending on the prompt, of course, it may force my hand a little bit. Let's get to rolling so I can find out what my next read's gonna be. The last space that we landed on in last week's vlog was other, so the scope of my rolls is gonna be from community shelf to comic over here, and I think that I'm happy with every space that we could possibly land on aside from unhaul, because I've just done a week of an unhaul project, so I don't want to read another unhaul book. But let's see where we're gonna land. That is a 5. Oh no. 2, 3. So it's a chance card. Oh no. Okay, let me shuffle these. I'm going to do the throw them down and shuffle because I can't actually remember the last time these were shuffled properly. Okay, and then I'll give them another little shuffle. And our top card is... oh! Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Okay, so roll number 5 this month was a chance card, and my chance cards, of course, are a mix of books that I really want to read and ones that I'm less interested in, like my interest in them has waned over time. And I'm real happy to say that we got one that I really want to read, which is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. So this one is a YA fantasy. I've read an Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and it is a book that still sticks in my mind. So I've been wanting to read Sorcery of Thorns for a long time because my main criticism of an Enchantment of Ravens is that the plot isn't overly complex, which is fine if you know going into it that it is a book where the romance takes the forefront and the fantasy is like a little bit more background in that book. But I also kind of wanted a little bit more from it, like a little bit longer, more substantial, and this one is a little bit thicker. I have also ordered the Fairy Loot edition of Vespertine, and I know that they're going to do matching editions of Sorcery of Thorns and an Enchantment of Ravens as well, which I intend to buy. So it would be nice to know whether I actually enjoy this book before that happens. They go on sale and I purchase them. But this one is, I can't remember what it's about, but I think it contains a library and a grimoire. So this one follows a main character called Elizabeth who's been raised in this library of grimoires, and her main aspiration is to become a warden, which is somebody who is tasked with protecting the kingdom from the power of the grimoires. However, an act of sabotage releases the library's most dangerous grimoire, and I believe she has to team up with a sorcerer called Nathaniel Thorn and his mysterious demonic servant apparently to track down this grimoire. And the whole premise of this is that she thinks, or she's been raised to believe, that sorcerers are evil, and I'm guessing she's going to change her mind and it's going to be a romance between those two. I've been told by people who've read this that I'm really going to love the sorcerer guy, Nathaniel Thorn. So I'm really excited to find out, and I'm really excited to dive into this. It is Saturday evening at the minute, and I'm just kind of sorting out all of my reading and stuff. It's 7:20, but I need to go work out now, and Curtis and I are also celebrating our anniversary a little bit early because it's on Monday, but obviously that's a work day and we won't have as much time to do stuff. So we're just having like a cozy weekend, really, playing some games and stuff. But before that can kick off, I need to go work out because I haven't worked out till Tuesday, so it's like I need to get this done today. So I won't be starting this for a little while, but I'm excited to jump into it, and of course I'll let you guys know what I think when I'm a little bit into this one. I am making good progress in Sorcery of Thorns, but I'm not enjoying it as much as I thought I was going to. So I've made it to page 169 so far, and I did not have a good time with the first 100 pages of this because I had no idea what was going on. But in this book we are following a girl called Elizabeth Scrivener, and she is an orphan, and the director of this library, I think it's the Great Library, took her in and started essentially training her to become an apprentice at the Great Library. But this was a little bit unusual because apprentices normally only start when they're 13, but the director found her as a baby, felt like the library had claimed her and she had like an affinity for the books and raised her there. So there's people in this library that don't really like her, like some of the male like people in authority. And what kicks off the main plot of this is that very early on the director dies and a sleeping spell was put on everybody in the library, but for some reason it didn't work on Elizabeth. So she got up, she found the director, realized that one of the grimoires had the grimoire escaped. I don't fully understand the concept of the grimoires in here. So something had happened with one of the grimoires and it had released this monster, or it had turned into a monster, and she went out and killed it, was blamed for the death of the director and sent away to stand trial. And she was escorted there by the sorcerer guy called Nathaniel Thorns. So the reason why I'm not really gelling with this book is that it is very action driven. We're very much driven by the plot in here. So it kind of, you have like one chapter briefly explaining Elizabeth and what it means to be an apprentice and how she wants to be a warden, and then very quickly the plot starts rolling. The director dies, everything starts moving really quickly, and there have been quite a few like big action scenes in this book so far at page 169. Now I definitely prefer my slower plots, my in-depth, like hefty, dense world building kind of fantasies, and this definitely is not that. And I think because of how quickly this book gets off the mark, I'm struggling to fully visualize what's going on. Like I can't fully grasp what the grimoires are and how exactly they operate in here. But I will say that everybody who told me I would really like Nathaniel, you are 100% spot on. So Elizabeth has had a very sheltered existence being raised in this library, and she thinks that all sorcerers are evil. So Nathaniel fully plays into this. She will ask him like what he's doing or where he's been, and he'll say like, oh, I was just off drinking the blood of virgins, like with a completely straight face, and he's just so sarcastic. So I really enjoy him. Elizabeth as main character so far is fine. She feels more like an empty vessel for this story to be played out through, as opposed to a fully fledged character at the minute, especially as we are reading exclusively from her perspective in here, but it is a third person story. So what I will say about it is that it is fast, and I think actually because I've taken the time to do rolling as I go instead of having a TBR, I think that that has very much affected my mood and how I'm reading, because I can just sit for a couple of hours now and read like 100 pages. So even though I've done the rolling as you go to relieve the pressure off myself when it comes to reading, what it has done, which is what I thought it would do, is it's made me want to read more, because I'm more thinking like, I want to finish this book to get to the next roll, or I want to finish this book because I'm really enjoying it, as opposed to I have to read 150 pages today, because when that happens I am clock watching pretty much constantly the entire time I'm reading. So I'm really enjoying that experience with rolling as I go. And I did forget to say, I think in this vlog, that I am participating in the Cleo Shit Readathon still, of course, and this one I have in for the prompt to steal a book from someone's TBR. That is the next prompt I had to fulfill. Obviously, as this was a chance card, I didn't have a choice in it, but I did ask on Twitter and also ask my patrons, and this is on Brandy's TBR for the month. So thank you, Brandy, for coming through for me. I have officially stolen this book off of your TBR, and ow, my shoulder hurts from my workout yesterday. I did an upper body workout on Saturday night, and then I did a full body bike boot camp yesterday, and it had a lot of shoulder work in it. So on top of the fact that I'd already done an upper body workout the day before, I'm having some aches in this left shoulder. But I've just finished editing last week's vlog, which is now currently just exporting, and I have a lot to do this week, and I'm already just not feeling it. I don't want to do anything, because we're getting to the point, like with my reading and having a TBR, that sometimes just gets to a point where everything you need to do seems overwhelming. And even though I will make it through my to-do list and it's not going to take me the rest of my life, on a Monday it feels like it's a lot and that I'm never going to get through it. Since my check-in with you guys yesterday, I'm feeling a little bit more conflicted now, because this has really picked up in the second half. This is like a love letter to Howl's Moving Castle. And if you know me, I mean, I don't mention it a lot, so I don't know why I'm saying if you know me, but I love Howl's Moving Castle. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and I love Howl, and this being a love letter to Howl's Moving Castle, specifically the character of Howl, I mean, how could I not love that about this? I wish that my life was a love letter to Howl. So you can say that this has picked up in the second half and I'm enjoying it a lot more, but like this time I can say, you guys know me, because you guys know that I'm a sucker for a romance, especially in a fantasy setting, and it's cute. I like it. I like it a lot. That being said, like the first half was still pretty action based, and I still stand by those criticisms because like the beginning of this book moved way too fast. But then the last, like, where am I up to? I've got 100 pages to go. So I'm on page 348. The last 200, because I think I was around page 150 when I last checked in with you guys, but the last like 150, 200 pages have slowed down a whole lot. So I kind of wish that the pacing was a little bit slower throughout all of it, because now I'm really starting to care a little bit about this. That being said, my criticism, as I've mentioned, of An Enchantment of Ravens is that I felt like it needed more plot. This definitely has more plot, but I don't care about the plot. I care about the characters more than anything. Obviously, like, I'm invested in how the book's gonna resolve. So I'm 100 pages from the end of this, which means that I'm gonna be doing my next Bookopoly roll, because the next roll is going to be one of the ones that my patrons vote on. So I need to give them time to actually do that. Also, if you're wondering why I'm dressed like this, it's a little bit extravagant for a Tuesday night, I know, but Curtis and I are going for our anniversary meal tonight. I mean, there's still an hour and 20 minutes until we leave, but I had a couple of like video bits that I needed to do, this being one of them. So I was like, why would I put my raggedy ass face on camera before I put makeup on? So I'm gonna set up the Bookopoly board and we will see what my next prompt is. So the chance space that we landed on is there, which means that my scope this time is from here to here. And you know, I'm feeling kind of chaotic, so I wouldn't mind a most recent purchase, even though we need to double together. Also, I think it would be really fun if we landed on Go, but I think pretty much any space is fine except maybe video project, because we don't have a theme for this week's vlog, so we'd have to invent one. But let's see what's gonna happen. A 4! Oh my god, no. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's happening! Okay, so I brought you guys over here because I'm gonna be using my laptop for this step, and we are going to start a screen recording so that you guys can see what's going on here, make sure that I'm not cheating. But the Go space in previous years, I don't think I've landed on Go this year, but in previous years it has corresponded to my entire Goodreads TBR, but this year I really wanted to focus on the books that I already own and not open it up to like every book I've ever wanted to read, which is what's on Goodreads, because I never clear out my Goodreads TBR. So this time we are going to the video that I make every December. So the one that we're going to be using is the 2020 version. So if we skip all the way to the end of this, we can see how many books I actually owned at this point. This kind of sucks that we're using last year, because I don't get new books in here like everything I've hauled this year. But that's also good because we're prioritizing the backlist, you know? Skyward, all by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, so the total number is 414, which we will put into the number generator. And as I've already mentioned, this is the Patreon poll pick. So we're going to do this 4 times and get 4 different books, and they will be the ones in the poll. So first one, this is the one, if this was my pick, the first one would have been the one that I absolutely had to read. And that is number 366. The Midnight Lie by Marie Rakowski. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and the Okay, it's the, I don't know, I think because it's a book in a series, like I can't read The Return of the King. I went to The Two Towers, so we're gonna say if it lands in the middle of a series, but I have to read whatever book in that series I'm up to. So the first one is gonna be Two Towers, because I actually, why so many books on that shelf that like I'm more excited to read, like so many random just hardbacks on that shelf, and we had to land on the Lord of the Rings series. Number 2 is 326, so we're staying up in the 300s. This might be the same shelf. Ooh, maybe a comic. 1, High School is Hell, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer Volume 2, Once Bitten, Fever and Wither by Lauren DiStefano, Burton on the that's non-fiction. Oh god, okay, so that's not gonna win. So I know out of those two my patrons would definitely be voting for Two Towers, so let's hope we can get something exciting in here to pull people's votes away from those books. 158. Okay, so that's going to be the main shelves, the 2 big ones. 150. Oh, okay, which one was it though? Gathering Darkness, Frozen Tides, and Crystal Storms by Morgan Rhodes, Interview with the Vampire, and The Vampire Lestat by It's The Vampire Lestat, but as I said, first book in a series, Interview with a Vampire. These are wild. I feel like out of these 3, it would be Interview with a Vampire at this point, so let's see what number 4 is. 346, so we're way back up there again. That's 45. And Fury by Zoraida Cordova, Legend Born by Tracy Dion. Legend Born. And out of all of those, I'm surprised, but we didn't land on a single book that I've already read. So let me just go get those books real quick. Okay, so what I have in my hands here is a pretty chaotic stack of books. Our first one was The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. We all know this, adult classic fantasy. Burton on Burton. This is a non-fiction about Tim Burton by Tim Burton. There was like a whole series of these. Like there's Woody Allen, David Lynch, Martin Scorsese, and I guess it's just like his own take on his own work or something. I really like Tim Burton, that's why I have it. Next one was Interview with a Vampire, adult gothic horror. Really loved the movie, heard good things about the book but not about Anne Rice, although I can't remember the bad things that I've heard about her necessarily. And Legend Born by Tracy Dion, YA fantasy. I believe that this is inspired by Arthurian legend somehow, I think. Don't quote me on that. If I had to pick one of these to read for myself, would probably be one of these two, but let's make a poll for my patrons and see what happens. I'm terrified. Hello, so I'm on my way to bed, but before I go, I need to fill you guys in on what I thought of Sorcery of Thorns, which I've just finished. So this came out as a 3-star read for me. I did just very mixed feelings on it. I loved the characters, didn't love how fast-paced this was, how plot-driven it was. It doesn't have like a super concrete, well-explained magic system. I'm still struggling to get my head around what exactly the grimoires are and how they come to be and like the specifics of those. But you guys know, because I said it before, I struggle with things like magical realism and fabulism, which this isn't, but it's just things that have magical elements that aren't explained. And I also definitely much prefer like concrete world building and a hard magic system, so I kind of know what's going on at all times, which this didn't have. But this is just a very different kind of book than I typically enjoy. We had a whole ton of whimsy in here, which, to be fair, it was the kind of whimsy I like, because it was very much like Howl's Moving Castle in that way, but it's more of a very fun, light, along for the ride fantasy, which is not my personal preference. I like my super like emotionally impactful, which this did have a couple of emotional moments. I will say that because it's more whimsical and light and fun, they didn't hit with me. Like, I wasn't overly upset, and there's a few like conveniences and stuff in the plot of here, but I just prefer my books to be a little bit darker than this one, and this is definitely like a fun, whimsical, along for the ride kind of story, which is absolutely fine, but just not something that I love. So sadly, this one is not a new favorite for me. Even though I said I wanted more plot from an Enchantment of Ravens, this was just too much plot, not enough characters. So I am still excited for Vespertine. I'm hoping we get a balance between the two that I really love, but if not, then I do want it to lean more towards an Enchantment of Ravens. Just generally have a slower pace, I guess, because I like that Margaret Rogerson has these really fun characters and fun romances in her book, and I like the humor in her books and the atmospheric, whimsical environment and atmosphere that she creates. There's just always something missing from one of her books, so I don't know if she'll ever be a 5-star author for me, but I will still continue to read her books because I did have a good time. So 3 stars. And for Clear Your Shit, this was a book that I stole from someone else's TBR. So let's see what the results of my Patreon poll are. I think I'm going to do some sketching in bed. I don't think I'm going to read, although it is nearly midnight, so I'm probably going to be going to sleep. But I would like to get a little bit of sketching done. Okay, so unsurprisingly, in 4th place with 3% of the vote, we have Burton on Burton. We knew that wasn't going to win. In 3rd place, we have The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. This one has 15% of the votes. Once again, not surprised, because I did say that I had a feeling it was going to come down between these two. In 2nd place, we have Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice with 34%, and our winner with 47% is Legend Born by Tracy Dion. And I've just noticed that nice shine of foiling across the title, which is great because I'm pretty sure my next Clear Your Shit prompt is to read a book with like gold, silver or copper foiling on the cover. I don't think it specifies foiling, it just specifies the colours, but we're looking for metallics, and this has a metallic title. So I'm going to be reading this one, another chunky YA fantasy. This one is over 500 pages, I'm pretty sure. 498, so just under 500, but I have heard it is also a quick read. Aside from that, I don't know much about this at all. It is the Owlcrate edition of this book, which is fancy, but I'm pretty sure it is a retelling of Arthurian legend, and it is a contemporary fantasy. That is all I know about this. I'm not going to waste everyone's time reading out the synopsis when you're going to find out what it's about as soon as I get a little ways of the way into it, and that's what I'll come and do when I've made a dent in this, I'll come let you guys know what it's actually about. Okay, I'm just pausing work very briefly. I'm printing some labels out, but I just spotted this Waterstones parcel that arrived 2 days ago, and I was saving it in case we landed on most recent purchase and I was going to unbox it then, but obviously we hopped right past that. But I think that this is Cytonic. Yes, this is Cytonic by Brandon Sanderson. It's shorter actually than I thought it was going to be, and I don't think, yeah, there's nothing special about this. This is just the hardback that I pre-ordered, book 3 in the whatever the series is called. Is it called the Nowhere series or something? It's his YA sci-fi series that follows a girl called Spencer who is trying to get into this flight academy to defend her people against this alien race called the Krell. However, her father was branded as a deserter in this flight academy, so they don't want to let her in. I really liked the first book, Skyward. Did not enjoy the second book very much, and I'm hoping that the third one pulls it round. Oh, it says it's got the title for book 4, which is apparently Defiant, which is surprising actually, because this one was supposed to be called Nowhere, I think, and then they only released the title closer to its release, but it's only 409 pages, so I thought it'd be a little bit bigger. I am hoping to get to this by the end of the year, but there are 2 novellas in this world that have been released in recent months, and there's a third one also coming in December, so I'm not sure because I don't know where they fall in the story. I'm gonna have to look it up, see if I need to read the novellas first, but hopefully I can squeeze this in before the end of the year. But like, I'm thinking that my last book of the month is going to be Legend Born, so we only have December. I don't anticipate reading a lot throughout the end of December, so yeah, we'll see. I don't know. So I have just finished filming and editing Bookopoly, and I actually have more time to film and edit videos today, but I can't pre-film any of my content for the first part of December because I'm still waiting on stuff. I could do my entire owned TBR, but that's a lot of effort. Like, when I'm saying I can pre-film and start getting some stuff editing, that's a video that takes me all day to make, so I don't think that's on the cards for me today. But I actually read a huge chunk of this yesterday. I started off listening to the audiobook, and I do think that the audiobook has a decent narration. I don't listen to a whole ton of audiobooks, of course, and I do only really listen to things with like full cast audio or like sound effects, podcast elements, that kind of thing. So the only reason I put it on is because I have been listening to a lot of podcast recently. I was gonna say podcast, but it's one particular podcast I've been listening to, which is called Morbid. I believe it's a really popular one, but it's like true crime, ghosts, and all of that kind of spooky, morbid stuff. So I don't typically listen to that podcast when I'm working. I normally watch booktube videos or Netflix, but I just wasn't in the mood yesterday, so I decided to try out the audiobook for this while it was just the beginning, and I listened to like 75 pages of it in audio. So the narrator is decent if you are somebody who likes audiobooks, but after I finished working I did switch over to physical, and I made it 148 pages into it, and I don't know if I'm liking it. I don't know. So it is a contemporary fantasy, and we're following this girl called Bree, and in the prologue of this book her mother has just died. It's a hit and run, and we kind of start the book where she's being told in the hospital that her mother is dead. I will say that while I'm not enjoying this, there were a couple of lines about grief that really hit with me. There is a quote on page 2 that says, "My mother's life has stopped. Shouldn't everything and everyone stop living too?" And that is something that I really remember feeling after my mum died. I was like, it's weird that the world goes on, like such a wonderful person has left, but nobody knows and nobody cares and nobody notices, and like the world just like carries on moving. And it's such a weird concept when your world has drastically changed that everybody else is just like living their lives as normal. And then there was another one a little bit later on in like chapter 2 or 3 or something that I won't be able to find it, and I can't remember the exact wording, but it was about how Bree and her father are grieving the same person, but their grief is not the same. Like, they're grieving differently, and what is helpful to one of them is not helpful to the other, which is something that I found with my dad. Like, we grieved in very different ways, which caused a lot of clashes. And yeah, like, it's very, people react to grief in very different ways, even if you're grieving the same person. So that hit with me as well. But her mother dies, and her mother was like really protective, and her father was as well. But before her mother died, she'd managed to get on this early access program for a college, and her mother was saying that like she couldn't go. But after her mother dies, her father lets her go. So the main bulk of this story picks up where she goes to this college, and she's at a party when she sees this big scary monster, and scary people, well, she's scared of them, but people with magic who are fighting this monster off. The magic people find out that she was there, they erase her memories, and she goes back to her dorm only to realize that she does actually still remember what happened, like the memory erasing thing didn't work. So this mainly surrounds a secret society of people called Legend Born, which is heavily inspired, well, it is like a direct kind of like Arthurian legendary telling about the descendants of Arthur and this war with like the monsters and the Shadowborn. And when she realizes that she can remember seeing that big monster, she also realizes that somebody tampered with the memory of her mother's death, and she doesn't think that her mother died the way that the police and the people at the hospital told her she died. So she then wants to get into this society to uncover the truth about her mother. So it's contemporary fantasy, which I don't love. Sometimes it can hit with me, but it's not obviously my favorite type of fantasy. I love myself a good meaty high fantasy, and it's a lot. Like there's lots of different terminology in here. There's different like classes of magic. There's the society of people who are descended from Arthur, but then they also take on like pages and squires, and there's also vassals as well, which are other families that aren't directly descended from Arthur, and then there's this whole system of them being called up, and it's a lot. And it all kind of comes to you in some info dumpy chapters. I mean, we all know I'm not a fan of an info dump when it comes to world building and stuff, but it's just a lot in the chapters that it's in. So I'm struggling to fully retain all of that information. Something I did not expect going into this is this has an entirely white cast of characters aside from the main character Brie. So there is a lot of racism in here, a lot of like racial prejudice. There's also a whole ton about colonialism and slavery. And I feel like this book is really talking about things like systemic racism and colorism and the racial biases that people have that they don't realize that they have. And I feel like this book is really highlighting a lot of subtle ways that racial bias is shown in society, as opposed to like outright brutality and racism, which we are all aware of. We all know it's bad. We all like see it on the news, like that kind of thing. So it's quite obvious that Tracy Deonn very intentionally told this story from this perspective, with this cast of all white characters aside from the main character, to really highlight those instances of racial bias. But like, yeah, overall I'm struggling with it. I feel like it's a very long book. Like I'm 150 pages in, I don't feel like I've made a dent, and just the way that it's info dumped all of the world building and stuff on me is a lot. But I'm gonna continue because it's not like I'm outright disliking it, but I'm just not overly into it now. And as well as being like 500 pages, the text is also tiny, so it's not like a 500-page book with like double spacing or anything. Like it's a lot. It's a lot, and I'm interested to see whether like how I'm gonna feel about this by the time I get to the end.
I couldn't see with how close I was. It's not hard to find if your grip is loose enough. How lucky to be by your side, to feel your stare. Sick as a dog, I run my hands through your hair. Oh, my heart will change. I wait for nothing. The intents rearranged, making space where there was none before. She says she's running on time.
It's Sunday, so We are rocking the Sunday look. I mean, I look like I've been chilling like a hot slob all day, but I've actually been working. I worked yesterday as well, only like, I'm gonna say only a few hours. I'm pretty sure I've done like 4 hours of work today. It's now like 3 p.m, but I'm like for sure not doing anything apart from maybe working out for the rest of the day. I want to finish this book today. I'm only on page 267, so I've only just hit the halfway point, but I know from my experience with whatever day, was it Friday, Thursday that I started this, that I can read like a lot of it at once if I set my mind to it. But I want to play Dead by Daylight and Final Fantasy, and I always do this where I'm like, oh, we'll read a bit and then you can play, and then I run out of time to play when that's the thing that I wanted to do. So I don't know how we're gonna swing this, but at page 266, I'm enjoying it more. It's weird because I don't actually feel like I'm enjoying this book, but I am interested in it, which is, but like there's not a lot that's compelling me within the story to continue, but I'm finding it really interesting. So like, it's safe to say that the plot has thickened here, and I understand why this book is so long now, because we've now introduced like a whole other element of magic, I want to say, to this story, which has completely took me by surprise. Like, I need to actually read the synopsis of this and figure out what it actually says. Yeah, no, like it pretty much only says about the Arthurian legend element in the synopsis, and that her mother died, and that she's trying to figure out like why her mother died when she finds out that it's not what the doctors said that it was. Nothing in the synopsis says anything about how heavily this deals with race and racial discrimination, and it doesn't mention this other like magical element at all. So everything that's happening in this book is taking me by surprise, and what I find particularly clever about this book, something that I really enjoy, is that this book does have a lot about racial discrimination. Then this new addition to the story, this new magical element, is also really interesting and plays into colonialism and slavery. I think that the elements that she's chosen to put together all in one book is so clever and works really well to tell this really complex story that has like a whole ton of levels on it. So essentially, when I'm breaking the book down into elements, I'm really liking all of the elements and the fact that they're all in one book. But if we talk about this in terms of a fantasy story, I'm not really interested in the plot, and I'm not finding the plot compelling, and one of the reasons for that is just because there's so many elements in here. I find myself getting a little bit lost because now we've introduced this new magical element as well. I've had an info dump about all of the mechanics of that particular thing when I haven't even fully got to grips with all of the Arthurian legend stuff. So I'm finding that there's a lot going on in this book, and it's proven to be a struggle for me to follow along with that and be invested in that story. But on the other hand, my brain, like the logical part of my brain, is really loving how this book is constructed. So very mixed feelings. very mixed feelings so far, but I know for a fact there's 2 love interests in this book, but I only know who one of them is, and I feel at this point I'm pretty sure that I know 2 people who could be the other one, but I don't know which one it's going to be, and I'm hoping it's one over the other. But when I was talking to Ro from Wandering Through Worlds about this, she said come back and talk to me at the end when I mentioned that. So I'm interested to see how this book's going to end, and I am only halfway through, and because there's so much going on, I feel like I can't really predict what's going to happen with this story. So I'm excited to continue for that reason. So I think my immediate plan, because I do just want to kind of play PlayStation, it's 3 p.m, I got myself a snack. I'm gonna get to the page 300 mark, but I'm at least that, or page 296 is chapter 32, and then I'm just gonna play some PlayStation for a while, see if I get bored, because I do have the Buffy watch along tonight, and we're doing 4 episodes to essentially accommodate for a crossover, and also crossovers come in, so that's going to be like 4 hours of my evening. So yeah, I'll just play PlayStation. I'm just gonna wing it. I'm just gonna do what I feel like, but before I fully lose myself to PlayStation for the rest of the day, I'm gonna make it to page 300 of this book. So I just got out of bed to bring you guys this update, because I said earlier, didn't I, that I was gonna get to page 300 in this before I stopped to play PlayStation, and I made it about 10 pages, and then I've spent all of my day playing PlayStation, doing the Buffy watch along, or all of my afternoon and evening at least, and then I've just gone to bed like, yeah, I'll read a good like 50 pages before I go to sleep. I've now made it up to page 296, and I just don't think I can continue. I still stand by all of the things that I said about really liking the elements and thinking it's really clever, the specific elements that Tracy Deonn has decided to put into this book and the story that she's trying to tell, but it's just a lot. It's too much, and it's it's not delivered in a way that's making it an enjoyable read for me. You're essentially given all of the information, like there's big info dumps about the Legend Born and the Arthurian elements of this story. And around probably, I don't know, in the first 150 pages anyway, you're given all of this information. And then around the page 200 mark, another element to the magic, which is very, very different from all the Legend Born stuff and pretty much contradicts it, starts to be introduced. And then that is info dumped on you as well before you get chance to fully process and understand, because you've been given all of this information at once. So it's not like it's been introduced slowly, so you're given it all at once, and as you're trying to adjust to it, you're given this whole like separate magic thing, like 95 side characters, and I don't know who any of them are. I can't tell the difference between them. And it's not that the book is bad, because if it was bad I would probably be able to finish it, because I'd be kind of like I was with Nerve last week, where I was like, this is real sketchy and real bad, I'm gonna keep reading. It's just really not doing it for me, so I'm reading, like actively reading the pages, and then can tell you nothing about what I've just read, and I cannot get my brain to switch on and focus on this book. I've looked on Goodreads as well, because I thought everyone loved this book. Everybody I've spoken to since I've been reading this book either loved it or hated it. And then I went onto Goodreads, and at least a good 50 of my friends have read this book on Goodreads, and there's only 3-star ratings. All of the others, like there's a few 4s in there, but all of the others are either 5 or 2. This is a Marmite book. You either love it or you hate it, and I am kind of right in the middle of the road, but I tend to go for a little bit of objectivity in my reviews. So when I'm reading, I think about the actual quality of the book and also my enjoyment, and then my rating comes out as like a balance of the two. Like I don't just rate on enjoyment, and I don't just rate on objectively like whether the book is good. So this would have been a middle of the road read for me probably. I guess it hinged on the ending, but I essentially tweeted and said like, is the end of this book worth me not DNFing it right now? 300 pages into it, so over halfway, and everyone who replied said no. So if it was going to deliver a dynamic punchy ending that kind of made the slog worth it, I might have considered it. But from what I can tell as well, I've seen a lot of people have had the same problem as me, where like they're struggling with how much is going on and not retaining anything and not really processing the actual content of the book. So if this does sound something like you're interested in, would definitely recommend picking it up and giving it a try. But from what I've seen in the few days that I've been reading this, it is like a love it or hate it kind of book, and I am not gelling with it, so I'm gonna be putting it down. I'm real disappointed. I wanted to really, really love this, and throughout the middle section, well, throughout the page 200 to 250, it was looking up, and then it just went rapidly downhill again. So luckily your shit, you can actually still count DNFs. Like DNFs are fully supported, so I think they still count for the challenges, because the main point of the readathon is just to read the books that you already own. So I'm gonna be unhauling this. And the next prompt that I have to fulfill is smallest book. Now this is going to be my last Bookopoly book for November, because I have already filmed my December TBR, but I still have 2 days left of November, and honestly this was putting me into a slump. So I was debating just ending the vlog here. There's 2 days left of the month. I do still have 4 books that were kind of on my TBR that I haven't read. So those are These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner, which is my Patreon pick, so I'll definitely be reading that in December if I don't pick that one now. Frostheart Rise of the World Eater by Jamie Littler, which I really want to read because it's the last book in the series, and I always read these for Believathon, and I've sucked at Believathon so hard this year. Inkheart by Cornelia Funk, also Believathon, and Amari and the Night Brothers. So I guess because the prompt for Clear Your Shit is shortest book, I'm gonna see which of these is the shortest, but like I think it's gonna be this. I'd rather read a middle grade, so technically it is this one. It's the blues. The blues beat the reds. The blues beat the reds. This one is shorter by 1 page, but I actually don't mind rolling this over into December, and I'm going to make sure that I definitely get to it in December, even though I have things and December's going to be busy. I would rather read Amari and the Night Brothers right now, because I feel like a middle grade is what I need after not enjoying a YA, because like Legend Born was really making me feel slumpy, and that's just not what I need right now. So I think that this will be a good thing to kind of perk me up, because even though this is 1 page longer than this, I keep dropping the Believathon cards. I'm pretty sure that this is actually going to be shorter, because I'm sure that the word count for this is less than the word count for this. So we're going with Amari and the Night Brothers. This was gifted to me by Gavin, so thank you very much, Gav. It's also the fancy edition with the sparkly edges and the gorgeous cover. It's also signed by BB Alston, and I believe that the sequel is up for pre-order now, so I'm quite eager to read this to find out if I'm going to like it so that I can order the sequel if I do. But I am pretty sure I'm going to love this because I've heard rave reviews for it. Gavin obviously reads a lot of middle grade. I don't, so he always recommends me ones that he knows I'm going to like. And I've heard this compared to Nevermore a lot, which is one of my favorite series of all time. So this one is following a girl called Amari, and I think her brother goes missing. So she ends up joining this like Order of Night Brothers. She's invited for a trial at the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, and she's certain that this is going to lead her to her brother. And the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs seems like some sort of like school or organization, because her roommate is a were-dragon. Because it sounds like a government building, but it seems like it's somewhere that she's going to stay. So yeah, oh, this one is definitely shorter than the other one because it has illustrations as well. So I'm going to start this. This one was, the challenge was to read an anticipated book for Believathon. I'm really excited about it actually. I feel like a good middle grade story is what I need right now. It is cold today. We are getting into that winter weather, and I do enjoy it, but only when I can sit like snuggled up. Luckily I can sit snuggled up like at my computer while I'm editing, which is what I'm doing today. But when I have to work and do candles and stuff, being cold is no fun. But it is also the last day of November, so I'm really hoping that I can finish Amari and the Night Brothers tonight so that I can get it in for my November wrap-up, which I'm filming tomorrow. And I am making very good progress. I'm 200 and something pages into it, 218, and I was so right. This is exactly what I needed. I definitely see the comparisons to Nevermore, and I understand why it's been recommended to me based on how much I love Nevermore, because in this one we are following a young black girl called Amari, who is from the projects of the city that she lives in, and her brother has gone missing. Now all she knew about her brother's work is that he did a very dangerous job that was top secret and he couldn't tell her. And this story starts off where Amari's getting in trouble at this private school that she has a scholarship to, because she pushed a girl who pretty much deserved it, but everyone thinks that she doesn't belong at this school because she's in there on a scholarship, and so they're trying to get her expelled. So she goes home and she carries on searching for her brother online, which is something she's been doing. Like, she's been looking for any clues and like posting his picture, trying to see if anyone's seen him, and she gets this mysterious email that says that she's going to receive a delivery. So then this guy comes to the door and he's like, oh hey, there's something in your brother's wardrobe, I've just delivered it. Well, she's of course really confused because she just opened the door to this guy, and it's actually an invitation to the Bureau of Supernatural, I still can't remember what the full thing's called, the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. And the Bureau is this like top secret location that has like secret elevators and stuff to get to it, and it's like one sock in Nevermore. So they train people who are supernaturally gifted in a variety of different things. Like, she gets a book called 1001 Careers, and you can pick to be anything that you would like. And she finds out that her brother is actually half of this really famous secret agent duo, and that he went missing, went on a mission, and even the people at the Bureau don't know where he went. So she kind of enters this society following in his footsteps to try and figure out what happened to him. Now while she's here, she's also facing the same kind of issues that she was facing at school, where nobody thinks that she belongs there because there's lots of legacy students there, like people whose families have been going to this school training program for centuries. And Amari is only very barely a legacy student because it's only her brother from her entire family that has ever gone to this school. This has all of the magical and whimsical vibes that I really needed, that I really hoped it would have, and it's giving me all of the same feelings I was having when I was reading Nevermore, where I'm like feeling real bad for Amari when people are horrible to her and she's faced with injustice, and also getting swept away with all of this magical stuff that's just so whimsical and wonderful. I love it when a middle grade like gets to me like this, because I'm like, I always joke that I'm like cold and dead inside. So it's nice when you read something like this that's just so like fun and heartwarming, even though it does deal with some more serious issues and some more heavy stuff within this, because it's at a middle grade audience, you know, it's not like too heavy, and you have all of this like fun magic stuff to elevate the story a little bit. I will say that in terms of comparing this to Nevermore, at the minute I don't have the same feeling of immersion that I have when I'm reading Nevermore, but I know that it took me a little while to get into Nevermore as well, so I am hoping at this point that this is going to be a 5-star read for me, because I haven't had one in November. So I really want this done by the end of the day so it can go into my November wrap up and like hopefully be the saving grace of this month where I haven't really loved anything at all that I've read. Good morning guys. So last night I did finish Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston, and I really enjoyed it, but I was shook at the end of this. I completely did not see the end of this coming based on like things that had happened earlier in the book, and I'm intrigued now because based on what I've seen, which I don't want to give anything away, but based on what I've seen, that's the closest that I've seen it. The second book, I'm really confused about the decisions made about what I've seen of the second book based on the end of this one. I'm really intrigued. Sadly though, this did not get 5 stars from me. This was not the saving grace of November, but I did really enjoy it, and it is definitely 100% like a solid 4-star book, and I definitely see potential for the sequel to this to be a 5-star. I think the reason why it didn't get that like full 5-star rating is mainly because, well, one reason is that I didn't find it totally immersive. Like, we definitely have an imaginative world in here, but I just didn't fully believe in it like I have when reading other middle grades, where it feels like this place is actually like a real hidden secret location. And the other one is that a lot of the plot of this book really hinges on spies, because Amari's brother is like a famous secret agent and she is trying to follow in his footsteps, and I definitely prefer in books like this like the more magical, whimsical track line as opposed to like totally spies, you know. But really imaginative world, really love the characters, plot twist that took me by surprise. I do think the plot could have been a little bit tighter, but I believe that this is a debut novel from B.B. Alston as well, so 100% room to grow within like the narrative construction and also the writing of this book, which the writing was great, enjoyed it. Something else that I really liked about this is that it weaves like fictional and historical characters into this Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. So you have like Dr. Moreau, Sherlock Holmes, Van Helsing, amongst tons of other like notable fictional characters that are kind of like built into the history of this in a really fun way, which I really enjoyed as well. So I really love this one. Definitely delivered all of those whimsical vibes that I was looking for when I picked this one up. 4 stars, and I am going to pre-order the sequel to this very soon, because I also need to pre-order the new Nevermore book as well, and I put it in my basket on Waterstones the other day. But I like to, when I place a Waterstones order, I tend to build it up so I get free shipping, just like put a ton of pre-orders and stuff in. So now that I want to pre-order this, I think it'll tip my basket over the limit that I need to get that free shipping. That brings us to the end of this reading vlog. All over the place this week, I feel. 2 disappointments, one that I DNF'd. Sorcery of Thorns I did enjoy, but not to the degree that I thought I was going to, and this was like the saving grace of the week, kind of brought me up to a higher note at the end of this vlog, because I was like truly falling into a slump with Legend Born. So I'm definitely glad that I DNF'd that. I will say that I did pick it up again and try to listen to some of the audio, but I quickly finished again because essentially Ro has led me to believe that the end is really good, and I wanted to find out, but then I realized that if I did find out and I did like the end, I'd want to read the sequel and I'd be curious about it, but I just don't have time to read the sequel to Legend Born when I really haven't enjoyed the first book enough to the point where I DNF'd it, so I gave up on that again. That is it. This is the last reading vlog for November, so I'll be back in December with some Christmas decorating, all of that good stuff, and also the first vlog in a new vlog series that I'm starting. Hopefully, if this one goes well, we'll make it a series. If it doesn't, we'll just give up. But please do stay tuned for that if you are at all interested. Aside from that, guys, I do hope you've enjoyed this vlog if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.